Okay. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining me. I'm Kelsey Gallagher Mambach, and I'm going to be presenting on a sense of belonging in the library, showcasing diverse content through social media. So we started the recording. I will just thank San Jose State University for being a founding partner, co-sponsor today, School of Information. I do want to mention that not all of this work is mine. We have a social media team at my job, and we have two librarians, Angelina Carney and Emma Trevina, who help every day with the posting, and we have a library assistant who has helped us with creating some internal documents. So today, I hope that you will leave me with a better understanding of the complexities and nuances of running or being part of a social media team for a library. And I hope that I can help you generate your own ideas for how you can showcase the diversity in your collection and create a sense of belonging with your patrons. I'm going to go over some things I consider core tenets of running a social media team. So first is you have to have regular meetings. It needs to be just as organized as any other initiative. So shared documents are very important. We have a celebratory document. It's an awareness, appreciation, observances, holidays, and it has all the months, weeks, and days for the entire year. We have resource lists of items, based on topic and genre so that we can go back and look at that. Everyone contributes to the agenda prior to the meeting, and everyone contributes to the minutes afterward. Also, the importance of assigning or volunteering specific things based on someone's prior knowledge, skills, expertise, or interest. It just makes sense to utilize, these skills that others may have that we don't, instead of, taking all this time to research when we can get something done quicker. Something that I want to stress is not to tokenize your teammates. It doesn't matter that so-and-so is part of the LGBTQIA+ community. They are not the assumed authority on everything having to do with that community. Same goes for any sort of ethnicity, race, religion. Unless your teammate identifies themselves as being able to act as that authority and saying, if you have questions about this type of stuff, you can come to me. Do not assume that. We all know that one person can't speak for an entire community. This is a document that we share. Our library assistant created it, and it has at the bottom, you can see the tabs for the entire year. We have columns with the celebratory months, the celebratory weeks, and the celebratory days. This was for June. So this is very helpful, can also be used for displays or event ideas. This is just an example of a shared list that we have. Our catalog, our library catalog, allows us to create shared lists internally that we can print, alter. It's a very good function. This is useful for years to come for ourselves. We will reassess every time we use it over again. But it's also useful to make available to your successors, whoever's going to take over when you're gone. So the things that we discuss in these meetings, we usually have the meeting in the middle of the month. So the 15th, it gives us enough time to discuss what's happened last month, but also how it's going for this month. We talk about the student population views, beliefs, and demographics. We talk about how we can present that demographic properly. Something that comes up a lot is word choice. So things like person first, identity first language, words that could hold trauma for some people, but not for all groups. So those are things that it really does help to have multiple people in the room and listen to everyone's opinions, listen to everyone's ideas, because we all have different experiences in the world. We're all part of different communities. Some of us may not think we're diverse, but we're all diverse in some way or another. So strategic posting is an absolute must. You can't just go in blindly. So we have that holidays and celebrations document that we go to often. but we're constantly adding to it too. So something I'm going to say a few times during this presentation: be diverse with your diversity. Instead of doing a general post, Hispanic culture, something of that sort, do something like Hispanic filmmakers. Instead of Disability Pride Month, authors with disabilities, subsections of groups that are often lumped together. In my opinion, it's not so great. Hispanic and Latine communities, AAPI, LGBTQIA+, immigrants, people with disabilities. These are people that there are subsections of these groups, and they all have different experiences, and it's worth it to showcase the materials of those subsections instead of just generalize every time there's a Cultural Heritage Month. Something that's easy for posting is on this day or this day in history. Birthdays are very easy for this, death dates, published and release dates of certain media. And it's very easy to just prioritize content for the Cultural Heritage Month or the celebratory time, holiday that's going on right then. It's Black History Month. Instead of just taking anyone's birthday in history today, I will just make an effort to look for a Black person to mention that, we would have content in our catalog for. Here's just some examples of what we've done to diversify our diversity. So Women's History Month, we have displays and posts, blasts, women biographies, women in politics, women of the Supreme Court. Here's an example of our Women in Politics post. It was a display. We posted the items that were on display, and then we went further and made some other posts with e-resources later in the month. One thing I want to point out is the importance of inclusive language here. So the last paragraph, you can see that we use the terms, are you a person that identifies as a woman who wants to go into politics? So it's a very easy thing to do. And it helps people feel accepted, it helps people feel seen, and it helps people feel that the library is a safe space that accepts them. So even if you are not if you were not born a biological woman, but you identify as a woman, we are saying that, we see you. Instead of using the term woman who wants to go into politics, we use this term, and it's very easy to do, and it can really make the difference for someone that doesn't often get that respect. Poetry Month, we had some posts and displays about Black poets, the Harlem Renaissance, modern poetry, AAPI. We were lucky enough to have these very short introduction items that are great books, and we had a bunch on Eastern philosophies and religions. So we took AAPI and did a subsection about, beliefs. And then we also did a subsection about the islands of the Pacific. So we took out the PI and did some stuff on that. Here's some examples. I'm going to try to go through quickly for the sake of time of Immigrant Heritage Month. Here's an example of some children's books that we have, diverse because it's, inherently diverse. It's Immigrant Heritage Month. And then here is another one that we have about the intersection of immigrants and religion in America. So we use the phrase creating an inclusive space through shared communities here. We say libraries are for everyone, and I think that our patrons can recognize that, yes, we mean so with religion as a shared community, but we also mean that the library and the school in general. Same here, we're keeping up with diversifying our diversity. It's LGBTQIA+ Heritage Month. Last month, we've got people in the arts, we've got authors. Here's a post we did about filmmakers. We identified the filmmakers by name. So something that's interesting recently, people have been thinking that the Matrix is actually an allegory for a trans journey, transgender journey. And the creators of the Matrix have transitioned to be the Wachowski sisters now. So if you didn't know that before, and now you've got this information, it may be something, to spark your research interests. Athletes with disability, children's books with disabled characters for Disability Pride Month. We chose to do this post about a family that has dwarfism. They were on a TV show on TLC. And, we have some information from the Little People of America Association. And then we also mention in the last paragraph that opinions vary within the community about whether or not the term disabled refers to these people. So be courteous and conscious when discussing this topic with a little person or a dwarf. As with anyone, people like to first be identified by their name, not their abilities or their disabilities. This was a post where we decided to turn the comments off. If anyone is friends with a little person or follows, maybe a celebrity online, you will see that they get a lot of hate. So we just didn't want that at all. We just wanted to avoid that. For Hispanic Heritage Month, we did a lot of subsections of the Hispanic and Latine community. So here's a post that we did with Cuban voices. These are two videos. We also did some of Peru, Ecuador, Spain, and we did a Mexican women post. Here's another Hispanic Heritage post. This is about the artist Pablo Picasso, who's not often known to be Hispanic. So that is interesting information. Here's one that we did about Bisexual Awareness Week. This was a particularly interesting one because also it's Hispanic Heritage Month, so we're covering a few demographics here. But this is about two couples, famous artists that were in open marriages. All three of these people were bisexual. Diego Rivera, who was Frida Kahlo's husband, identified as a straight male, but encouraged his wife to have romantic and sexual relationships with women. So this is not only very interesting information that probably most people don't know, but it's Bisexual Awareness Week. We are, reaching out to our bisexual students and patrons and saying, we have resources that are people with the same sexual preferences as you. Here's some examples of on this day or this day in history. This was for Ramadan. We mentioned that the Islamic Student Association had reserved a room for a quiet space until the middle of the month to practice prayer and quiet reflection. And we're showcasing children's books. So that's another collection that, just not often used, but if we post about it enough, perhaps it will be. The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedoms there was an anniversary in August for that. So here is, this day in history post for this. We mentioned things like that the Civil Rights Act was not immediately followed. Though it was enacted, it was not immediately followed. We recognize the struggles, and we do mention that Black, Indigenous, and people of color still face issues like this. Here is going further for that March on Washington anniversary. Here are some books from our basic collection. It's ESL, but it's also for people that perhaps are just at lower reading levels or who just don't really enjoy reading but want to get some information in a different way. These are artists that performed at the march, and we've tried here to get a diverse array. We have this Black woman, we have this Hispanic woman, Joan Baez, Mahalia Jackson, and then Bob Dylan is Jewish. So when Rosh Hashanah came about, a Jewish holiday, we decided that we could celebrate Jewish children's books authors. So we did this, and then 10 days later is Yom Kippur. So we did the same thing again, celebrating our Jewish children's book authors in our catalog, and we gave a little bit of information about the holiday for people that don't know about it. For Coming Out Day, National Coming Out Day, we have this post. It's not so much celebratory as it is cautionary. So we mentioned that sometimes it's not as you hoped when you come out to family members and friends. But we have these resources for you about other people's stories about coming out that are available to you. We tag the Office of Social Work, and we tag our free telehealth therapy that's available for all of our students. Here's an example of kind of this day in history. The FIFA Women's World Cup was happening, so we decided to showcase some women athletes. This may not seem so diverse, but anyone that has spent time in an academic library will tell you that one of the least served populations, or maybe overlooked, are the athletes, the student athletes. It's not that they're not academic, it's not that they don't spend time in the library, but we often don't showcase items for them. So one of the things that I have on my mind is to try to start showing some more books about athletes and athletics in general, to try to make this population of students also feel welcome and a sense of belonging with us. Some tools. So hashtags, I will not speak of them. If you want to contact me after this, we can talk. It would probably be an hours and hours conversation. There's so much nuance and so many things to talk about with that. But I will speak to tagging. So academic libraries, I would suggest tagging other departments in your school. Public libraries, other libraries in your consortium, or community centers such as the YMCA or other socialized centers in your community that your patrons have access to. School libraries, I think it's a really good idea for an elementary school library to tag the high school library where those students will eventually be going. It can possibly take down a barrier or fear that the younger students have for going there, because they can see online, oh, the librarians know each other, the libraries know each other, they get along, oh, they have that book that we have here. And it may eventually lead to a better sense of belonging within the school district for these students, and it won't be so scary to leave younger school to go to high school. Something that we do that I suggest everyone should do is extend an olive branch to your patrons for additional library help. We always say this at the end of all our posts: ask a librarian for help locating and accessing, or search the catalog, link in bio. Very simple, we copy paste it. It lets them know that we're here for them. We have an exclamation point, so we seem excited. And, it just furthers that we want to be accessible. Here is a hashtag I suggest if you don't know much about hashtags. It's very easy. There's a lot there. It's a very inclusive tag, and these graphics were made by an assistant director of libraries. They're free to use, modify, and share. There's 8 versions of them, but there are 62 different languages. So if it's a cultural heritage month, say that it's the end of the month, you don't have time to post about it, or you don't really have the resources in your library. Take one of these libraries are for everyone, post it in the language, hashtag libraries are for everyone, hashtag libraries are for everyone in the language that you are posting or your images in. I won't speak to that. Something you will have to have concerns when you first start off. Eventually they'll be second nature, but you do need to be on the lookout for things like trolls, bots, and just in general bad actors and mean people. If you have any concerns whatsoever, I suggest just turning the comments off. We always turn the comments off when we post something that could potentially fuel anti-Semitism. Granted, we don't do this with most of our other groups, but because of a certain president, the internet is once again very hateful. So something to be aware of. You know your library population better than I do, so this is case by case. Do your patrons need historical context statements? If you're working in a research library and helping PhD candidates, they don't need to be told the importance of historical context in an item. But younger patrons, first semester college students, they may not understand that things can still be valuable, even though they're outdated or the language has changed. Trigger warnings, like I said, you know your population, but sometimes things do call for it, such as information about war, conflict, mental health problems, abuse of any sort. And then when you take precautions, or if you think that the content is sensitive, tag your Office of Social Work if you have one. Tag a mental health app or a mental health resource. Give information about local resources. If your library has a social worker, mention that at the end of the post, at the end of your description. Here's an example. We have not had to use trigger warnings in our social media, but here's an example where we have a disclaimer. So this is an item about mixed race college students. And we mentioned that it's written in the early 2000s. And then the last paragraph we say, remember that much has changed in regard to how the country sees race and ethnicity since the publication of this book in 2004. Though the essays here demonstrate an important time in higher education in the country, when issues of race and ethnicity were beginning to be a part of the mainstream conversation, we believed that this was enough to let the students know what they were getting into. Another situation where we had a disclaimer, this book right here, Gay Lesbian Almanac, is calling their content modern times, but it is 1880 to 1950. So we just made a statement about how modern times here is considered this time period. You want to be aware of some overlooked demographics. These are things that I've realized. This is not necessarily backed up by data, but just articles I've read and things I've realized. So single parents are often overlooked. The disabled community, subsections of the LGBTQIA+ community, veterans and active military individuals, which we do try to prioritize with our social media content. And then people that are affected by the digital divide. Not everyone has access to reliable Wi-Fi. Not everyone has access to their own personal devices. If possible, provide information about how to get offline access to your online library resources, such as downloading a PDF to your phone or printing out objects, open access things, or promote libraries that offer hotspot rentals or extended hours. Here's an example of an overlooked population. So we have a student that has a service dog. We all received an email about it. Just don't pet the dog, don't make assumptions about people's disabilities. So we essentially kind of recontextualized but regurgitated everything from the email. And we found some books about service animals. So, the thought here is that we want to make this student feel safe. We want to make them feel welcome. We don't want them to think that because they have a, unique personal situation that we aren't able to serve them any better than we are someone else that doesn't have a service dog. So, I hope that the student saw this and appreciated it at some point. Another overlooked population, asexuality. Here's an item for that. And then here is a Mother's Day post. So we decided to focus on some diverse mothers, such as mothers in the military, this one book, Motherhood So White, and then being a mother in a strange land, migrant women's experiences in the Netherlands, Chinese migrant women. In general, it's up to you to educate yourself, and you absolutely need to do this if you are going to be involved with things that are front-facing and available for the public to see. There are LibGuides and resources from other libraries about this. I included them in the end of my references here. National organizations, and then also the APA manual and the MLA manual have chapters about bias-free language guidelines. So this is really, I don't have a lot of time. I'm going to speed through this, but this is the main thing I wanted to speak about. So promoting truth. There are complex issues, right? And you can do things like turn off the comments, but it's important to speak to the importance of your patrons educating themselves on all sides of things so that they can understand their own opinions, their own arguments, and their own stances on things. We have a duty as librarians to give them credible, authoritative information and to combat the spread of misinformation, especially when the world goes crazy. You cannot shy back just because things are complicated. We can give them library resources, but also resources about safety, about us being a safe space, about other places that we can give to them. So here's an example of us. We wanted to make a post about the Israeli-Palestinian situation. So we looked into how are other libraries handling this content. We realized that a library nearby had made a comment. They left the comments on, which we found was odd. And then we looked up their demographics very quickly. Census.gov, quick facts. They had less than 2% Jewish and Muslim population. It was mostly white, it was mostly Christian, and their page was not really engaged with their patrons. So this was a relatively safe post for them and their patrons, but it's different for us. We couldn't figure out what to do right away, so we did this. Libraries are for everyone, Hebrew, Arabic. Social work services were tagged, also the telehealth. We created a giant document with all of the books that we thought could be posted, and with our bias concerns, with our individual concerns, notes about language. We eventually decided on these 2 books. We taught historical context, reliable information. We spoke about misinformation, and we spoke about understanding different points of view of an argument. And we tagged social work, we tagged telehealth. The last thing I'll say is that it's very easy to engage with your patrons online. This is how I do it. I do a recent return hashtag, and then I call the student out right here. Hey, architecture enthusiast who borrowed these books, and now I'm telling them about a different source that they could use for similar content. Here, Cult Classic Movie Marathon. I'm telling them about the DVDs and our streaming databases, specifically a database for cult classics. And here, there's a student that is constantly taking out President DVDs, PBS President DVDs. So I suggest our reference section and our biographical reference bank database. So that is it. I'm sorry I just sped through so fast. If anyone has any questions, comments, or wants to tell me that they disagree with me, I welcome that as well. These kinds of things, it's important to disagree and understand why people disagree with you. So that's my email. I really welcome anyone contacting me. So thank you for your time.